meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by 1, posting a copy of the agenda on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on the township website. 2, filing a copy of the agenda in the office of the township clerk at the municipal building. 3, forwarding a copy of the agenda to the central record in the Burlington County Times. 4, forwarding written notice to each person who has requested copies of the regular meeting schedule. All the above posting, filing, and mailing have taken place on the 1st of February 2013. Your eyes for the flag salute, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Call roll, please.
Mr. Beanstock?
Here.
Mr. Pace?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Bolney?
Here.
Mayor Checkeye?
Here. Thank you. Communications, Mr. Manager. All right, scheduling items. Next meeting is February 19th at 7:30 here at the Township Building. Next item is approval of minutes from the January 22nd council meeting and January 22nd executive session. Everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes. And are there any additions, corrections to those minutes? If not,
There were a couple of spelling items, and I believe the clerk got the same ones I
all right, so those were corrected? Madam Clerk, those-
Yes.
Okay, all right, so if I don't have any other additions, corrections, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
got. So moved.
Second. Thank you, Chuck. Motion or voice vote for approval? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item is Fairview Road paving project funding mechanism. Last year, council authorized the engineer to proceed with the New Jersey DOT grant
Chris, can you move up my phone back?
to do the next phase of Fairview Road. The township was awarded a NJDOT grant. Funding is available to award, however, there was not enough funding to award the engineering contract and administration. So what we're recommending is utilizing some past bond authorizations where we have funding available, canceling those and reallocating by bond authorization to put money in place to have the engineering taken care of. So we can do that all at the next meeting and be able to award it at the next meeting simultaneously. So I just wanted to keep council abreast so we can get that project taken care of and meet the state timeline for that. Council, any questions?
So what you're saying is the bond that was available was sufficient to meet the work, with the exception of,
Yes.
do we have an estimate on that engineering cost?
I do not have that with me tonight.
I believe it's 36,000,
Yeah,
if I
'cause
remember.
I remember when we were talking about this, we kind of expected that that was going to be the case. With the amount of work that was left to be done, you know, it probably wasn't going to cover
We
it.
were gonna try to cover it in the operations budget, but it can be spread, it should be spread with the project costs, so that's how we're recommending the council. It'll be on the next agenda, if council has any issues at that time, we can address it then, unless you want to discuss it tonight. Next item is the sanitation implementation. At the last council meeting, I advised council we were looking at trying to restore at least 1 yard excess hour for trash and recycling. Right now, we're only accepting recyclables. Council asked if that could be split. I talked to the Public Works Director, we can split it. And starting next week, Tuesdays will be, the yard will be open 7:30 to 11:30 a.m. And on Thursdays from 11:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. when we close. Those 2 days per week plus the Saturdays will provide more days than when the township was at peak before 2011 when it took away the bulk curbside pickup. So again, in the context of what we're trying to accomplish here, the yard will be accessible 2 days per week, not full-time hours, but available for residents who still would like to use the yard for accessing. And again, it's still.
This is for residential trash, not contractor.
That's correct. You know, again, we talked about this, again, it's been my position that the governments, municipal, have allowed the expansion of services without any thought process into how towns are going to pay for this. So when a homeowner is doing a single room, tearing carpet out, and they put that out for bulk or whatever, that's one thing. But when you get a call from a homeowner who's completely tear down the entire 3,000 square foot house and is renovating, that becomes a construction project. My opinion has always been the tax system was not designed to take on that, I call it absorption. Why is this, the neighbors paying for that person to do renovation and construction work to their home? It's much like the zoning process. We charge a zoning fee. Why? Because somebody's asking to do something different to their property. Or a construction fee. Why is there a construction fee? Because you're asking to do an improvement to your home. Why are the general taxpayers paying for that? So these are things we've been trying to tighten up on, and we'll continue to do that. But we will, we will take the residential at the yard as we have been, but we have curbed back contractors being able to come into the yard. We don't allow it now, and, it's not an uncommon practice, meant for, I believe we're doing very much like other municipalities when it comes to that. But we will have yard access starting next week. We'll put that out in the, on the website. We'll get it out as best we can within the resources we have. Any questions on the general sanitation?
Yeah, I'd like you to address in general, how things are progressing with regard to the new contractor.
Okay. The contractor is transitioning. We have had the number of residential issues is down to a handful. There are a couple areas of town. You want me to address the email as well? Now, we had an email over the weekend that, again, it's just becoming aware, but I'll just address it. Trucks are too large to move freely through smaller.
Mr. Manager, when your mic's that close, so from your feet.
I just want to make sure everybody hears me, because I'm.
And let's just put these in context.
Yeah.
These are things that I was out on some social media sites over the weekend, and I happened to find some comments that were made with regard to our trash implementation and the leaf collection for the township. And quite frankly, I was shocked at the comments because they weren't put out there as opinion, they were put out there as fact. And I had the township manager address those items that were in those comments, just so we could determine whether or not those were true or not. So, and that's what he's going to address right now.
Well, the first item is trucks are too large to move freely through smaller developments. Arms of most new trucks used are not able to pick up old style round trash containers. Therefore, they need to be lifted in hands slowing down collection. Truck arm are not able to pick up trash containers as containers are touching. There are 4 courts, and this is my response to that. There are 4 courts in Cardinal Ridge and a couple smaller courts in Birchwood. And we have 1 person on Chippewa Trail that the vendor has had some difficulty. The vendor is walking the carts out and returning them to the houses. He's still picking up the containers regardless of how he's doing it at the same unit cost. As far as the older style containers, I did publicly say at the last meeting that when he's using the rear loader method, because one of his equipment is out of service, the rear loading retrofit automation is for the new style containers, not the old brown containers that we still have in service in a lot of parts of the town. He's working on getting a retrofit for the round containers, even looking at ours and possibly if we're able to either sell or lease ours to him. And these are used for backup if an automated truck is out of service. The same thing that the township did. Truck arms cannot pick up cans touching. This was the same for our vehicles. The director indicated cans should be at least 3 feet apart. When cans are touching, they're either knocked over or the driver gets out and moves them. And with Casworth trucks, the driver is able to get out quicker than our guys, because our guys drove on the cab and walk around. Their drivers are on the side with the arms on, and they can just step out and deal with it.
So 2 points on that, Chris. The rear loading, that's a temporary situation while the truck is.
He has 1 truck out of service, and the two new ones that are strictly dedicated to Medford are in Irving from Minnesota.
Okay, and number 2, the cans touching. you've never been able to put your cans together,
No,
as long as we've used automated pickup.
correct. This is not something new
Okay,
because
so,
of this vendor.
so essentially, those statements would be false.
Right.
Okay.
All right. The next one was leaf collection. Still in process, vacuum leaf machine was purchased for about $17K by township. Leaves are frozen to the ground, must be picked up by hand using shovels, which takes longer and more manpower, requiring 2 hours of overtime during the week and during exam Saturday, and extra expensive for residents. My response, township does not use shovels for leaf collection. We use forks and pitchforks and rakes. Leaf collection hasn't slowed whether leaves are frozen or not. We have assigned more staff to the leaf program to get leaves done, but not on overtime. Our fourth leaf machine was repaired last week and all 4 vacs were out. In addition, now that we are not doing sanitation, we deployed a brush truck in advance of leaf crews in order to pick up the larger piles. Each week is different depending on schedules of staff. There's no extra expense even if overtime was authorized. A certain amount of overtime is always budgeted for. So again, there's no additional expense. We're going as fast as we can given our resources.
So, again, if I read this statement correctly, about more manpower requiring 2 hours of overtime during the week and during the day on Saturday, and an extra expense to Medford residents, those statements would be, again, false, correct?
They're not accurate.
Okay.
Bulk trash collection. The issue here is demand is too great so far for the outsourced company to keep up with. It's absolutely false. There was 1 week the vendor had a concern when we had 90 pickups, which he completed 2 hours ahead of his time to get out of town. He's not missed any bulk and has not been able to meet the demand. So, again, it's just getting very frustrated having to spend my time reacting to this stuff. The last item is, by the way, at the township's expense, letters will be sent out to residents to address the dangers of having your leaves in the street. It's against the law to put your leaves in the street, you can be fined. Yes, even if you follow the rules and have them out curbside at the time notes on the township website. You are now in violation of state law, and town council is very concerned with the residents who are violating state law.
I addressed that issue at the last council meeting, if I recall, and I think it's been addressed at the very least, 4 or 5 times over the course of the past year.
Well,
I mean,
let me ask you just a couple of questions here. Doesn't the state law and on our own ordinance, which mirrors the state law, doesn't it require that when leaves get put out, and as long as we've been collecting leaves, and as long as that law has been enforced, that they not be put in the street?
yeah,
Stormwater management, yes.
Okay. So, and our township website says it's essentially that you need to keep them out of the street. It doesn't say you can't have them out
Correct.
as long as they're on your property. It just says that you can't put them in the street, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And are we sending out any letters?
We've taken a soft enforcement approach, 1, because of manpower, but 2, because again, we're going through this transition. So it is an expense to the township, but it's budgeted for it. It's no different than if you call and your neighbor has grass that's 6 inches high, or has a shedding. If it's a violation, the township has to react to it. So it's part of our budgeted zoning and code enforcement activities. So if we didn't budget for it, how would we, obviously we wouldn't be able to do that job. We're not sending any letters out about the dangers of leaves. Everybody knows that leaves are out. We're basically reacting to the stormwater laws. Once we get through the leaf program, any leaves still out in the street, we're going to have to react to that. And the town is not liable for that. The homeowner is, because they put them in the street against the stormwater policy. So it's not something new. We've been discussing it since I came in 2011 as we tried to turn around and change things.
So again, looking at that statement, that would be false, correct?
In my opinion, it's yes.
Now, let me ask you another question. When false information and misleading information like this is put out there on the internet, does it impact your ability to do your job in any way?
It's no secret I'm frustrated with the social media world. I spent the last 2 days, 4.5, 5 hours reacting to at least 3 things put out on that Facebook page or other pages in the town. I don't monitor it. I choose not to monitor it because it's not attributable. It's misinformation. Look, I've said it since I came here, I'm accountable, I'm the horse's mouth. You wanna come, call me on the carpet, call me on the carpet, okay? I'm not a township manager that's just gonna do what town managers maybe have done in the past. I'm trying to do the best for the township. But it's taking my ability away when I have to continue to go back and do public relations on misinformation to deal with other issues like the budget. I don't have a budget prepared today because of delays doing other things. I'm just being blunt. I am frustrated, okay? And I'm sorry, I'm just, this, it's getting wearing. Social media to me is no different than yelling fire in a movie theater with some of this stuff. But people have a right to make their opinions, but when it's not factual and it's not attributed to anything, I'd like to know where this information is coming from. So,
And Mr. Manager, do you think it impacts other employees of the township, like the Director of Public Works?
it's impacting, our organization is strong, everybody knows that. The more we react, we're all wearing multiple hats. You know, I am the town manager, I'm also now the community development director and the public safety director. I'm trying to, we're trying to handle all the workload issues that not just residents need and require here, the state has imposed on us. I made a comment at the last meeting about the new open public meetings amendment and how that's going to impact our ability to do things. It's just, we're trying to react, the organization is smaller, but yeah, it's, if I could have a public relations person, I'd hire one in a minute if I had the budget to do it, to just deal with this stuff, because it's really getting frustrating.
So, and do you think that all this false and misleading information out there, which impacts your ability to do your job and potentially other employees of the township, does it cost the township any money?
Well, it's taking our time away from doing other tasks. It's
So-
not added, it just shifts around.
Shifts your ability to do your job on a timely basis.
Yes.
I mean, it's just shocking to me that we have residents out there putting out information like this.
Well, some non-residents too.
And engaging in such malicious behavior that impacts our town and impacts our manager's ability to do his job every day. And I have to say that, on behalf of the council and on behalf of the other residents, at least in the township, I have to apologize and you have to contend with this type of behavior on a daily basis. And I would just hope that the individuals that are responsible for this malicious behavior would have the courage to stand up and apologize to you as well in a public setting.
Mayor, there's always an element of this stuff in all my travels, but I've never seen it like I've seen it here, and it's very frustrating. I'm gonna continue to do my job and try to turn this town around, regardless of all the other stuff that goes on, but like I said,
And I appreciate your
I'm just,
trying to ignore this nonsense as best you can to do your job.
I'm not afraid to vent to the community, because I think that's what they want to see sometimes. And I don't think I've shied away from expressing how I feel and about managing this town, so. The next item, approval of Jason Richwell as junior EMS volunteer, Station 258. Everything is in order.
Okay, you need a motion for approval?
Yes.
I have a motion for approval.
So moved. Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, as you may recall, we're trying to build some bike trails in between the Church Road and the Hartford Road athletic complexes. The town owns that land in between. Larry McDonald from Wheelies is working to get a grant, which is no match, which is one of council's policies if we can find revenue. He needs some supporting docs. I'm prepared to write a letter on behalf of the town. It would be set up similar to the skate park where we do the ordinance for, they bike at your own risk and do all that, so that we transfer liability. I just wanted to keep council in the loop. We're trying to do this, obviously, I'm a big biker, and we're doing so far at no cost to the township to try to accomplish this, to bring some additional amenities to the town.
Have you reached out to MYAA yet? They're really not necessarily property owners, but property users next to where we're.
We haven't yet, until we get a handle on what, there is a DEP permit that's required, it's an OP permit, because the area is wet, but it's consistent with what they want to see in these type of properties, with as far as trails and building of trails. Once we get our hands around that, then we're planning to have a meeting, inviting people who can build trails within, myself, for example, I've been a national mountain controller, people who can bring skills to the table as well as MYA. The really only thing we need to accomplish that is the parking area. As far as, and parking in areas that are not really near the athletic field, so we towards the wood where the trailhead will start probably.
Well, and one of the reasons I ask is when I first spoke with you and then with Mr. McDonald in relation to this, was it's a perfect opportunity to help. I mean, MYA is already there. They have assets in place there. It's a perfect opportunity for whatever you're lacking or whatever they need, or something that you can share in this process. You got a lot of kids and a lot of parents, my kid's not playing soccer today, stick him on his bicycle and stick him in there because he can't run up and down Tuckerton Road because there's no bike path. Anyway.
Okay. If council has any questions, you can let me know offline.
Just a quick
Oh,
question. If the project were to move forward, would there be a cost share to the township?
The goal here is not to, have any, there are different bike groups out there that will bring trail maintenance in, and things of that nature. So we're trying to do this again, the intention was no cost to the township. In fact, Jersey Action Riders through Jersey Off-Road Bicycle Association, Jorba, helped the state build trails in Bastow, which is one of the areas we go ride, I go ride down there. So there are these groups out there that will come in. If the land's there, they're gonna come in, and if you said, go ahead, build, have at it, again, this is not to bring any cost to the town. In fact, obviously, hopefully it'll spur some economics into this.
Sorry.
For example, when I travel, I was in French Creek this weekend, bike riding in French Creek State Park in Pennsylvania. What's the first place I hit on my way out is a local Wawa because I need a Gatorade. So obviously we're hoping that will spin off some economic opportunity here by bringing people that way. The last item is the budget status. I had hoped to have a budget to council tonight. I will indicate we are still within the state timeframes. We have to have an introduced budget by March 15th and an adopted budget by April 26th. I got the annual financial statement and revenue preliminaries on Friday. They look good, actually. We did very well on that side this year. The expense side has been transmitted, and as of yesterday, I was about $175,000 from, with some certain things of having a budget within the cap vault this year. So there's not going to be a referendum. Again, we're moving forward. There's still obviously issues. I should have the book ready by the end of this week, maybe early next week, to get to council, and then I can give a formal presentation at the next meeting. This year, there won't be projections because I have the financial numbers. Last year, I didn't have them when we transmitted. It was one of my complaints with the way the law is structured, but I have them this year, and I'd rather button this up and get it to council almost intact. If council wanted to use the budget, if council chose to use the budget I give to you to introduce, you could. That's, again, there's still a lot of work to be done. The biggest issue right now is the reserve for uncollected taxes and our debt service are the two big numbers that we're dealing with. But it maintains where we're currently at as far as services. So, again, I always said it's a 2 to 3 year process. I thought we're moving ahead, and we'll take it to the next step. But I apologize for not having it tonight, but a combination of some other things we just discussed and not having some numbers.
So can I ask a couple
Yes.
questions? So where does this put us in terms of these statutory deadlines.
I'm the only one, it was supposed to be transmitted from me to you by tonight. You're still within the statutory timeframe though, to have an introduction by March 10th or March 15th and adoption by April 20th. It's not uncommon for towns not to hit these deadlines, or the state, although the state holds us to them, they don't hold us to the exact day and time. They know we're dealing with different changes of numbers. We don't even have, I don't believe we even given the state numbers yet. My budget again utilizes existing state aid. I don't have any idea what the governor's gonna give us. He's gonna maintain, just because of other events, i.e. that we may see an issue there. So again, I'm trying to maintain where we're at staffing and things of that nature. With where I'm at with this budget so far, being able to do that within what I'm going to transfer.
Let me ask you some specifics on the RUD, or the Reserve for Uncollected Taxes. When we budget for that number, does that number include whatever it is, 2.5 or 2.6% of our total taxes? Does that include our piece as well, or just the counties and just the school district's piece?
It counts for the taxes we're not going to get in total.
In total. Do we have to budget for our piece?
As far as I know, we do. Kath, I don't know if you can confirm that, but
Yes.
I mean, why would we have to?
because the law dictates the whole process.
You know, we have to make the county and the school district whole.
Yeah.
We don't have to make ourselves whole unless we collect the money.
Yeah, but we have to be able to cover the expenses that we have to be able to cover ourselves.
We still need that money.
We still need that money to cover our expenses.
Projected that we won't collect it, so we gotta come up with it
Yeah.
against the budget.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, I don't know why it has to be
It's like a
budgeted.
double expense.
Here's,
How do you get it?
well,
You just collect it, it's
You
cash
got-
when you collect it.
eventually you gotta collect it, but here's the problem it poses. If I don't collect it this year and I budgeted for it and I spent it, now I'm in the hole. And if I don't collect it next year, I go in the hole again. It's a never-ending cycle. How about we budget for it and we put it in a line item in the budget that says RUD? Okay? This is what we're gonna spend on Medford Township, the municipality RUD. It's in our budget. And at the end of the year, that money's still sitting there. Because we didn't collect the tax, we don't have the money to spend.
I don't know if that's, again, it's all
There's, procedurally, what would be the problem with that?
I have to look at it.
If I didn't get paid, I can't spend it. Makes perfect sense.
So you're looking at, now, another question, with regards to when we do eventually collect those monies. We've already made the school district whole and the county whole, subject to a credit the following, correct?
Not the school, but just the county.
No, the school doesn't give us a credit, we don't get a credit for
The
that.
school's
That's
made
correct.
whole no matter what.
Well, what I'm saying is, when we collect that money, we make sure that we keep 100% of it,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so that 70 or
It's set
85
up-
cents don't go back out.
It's set up that because we're the collection agency, we should be able to go recover these funds and, you know, the problem is municipal budgets are year by year. They don't, you know, and if I don't have that available this year, it impacts, just like last year, we had to bump up the RUD by $500,000 and we had to lay people off. The RUD's up another $400,000 this year. Fortunately, the other things are playing out the way we had hoped and planned for, and we're not having to go back to the employee pool at this point, so far in my budget.
Okay.
Before we go on, just for the public's edification, RUD stands for
Reserve for uncollected taxes.
Reserve for Uncollected Taxes. We sent a letter off to the state last year asking for them to take a look at this because essentially we're the tax collector, we're paying all those bills for providing that service, and we're making the county and school district whole, whether we collect all the taxes we're due or not. Okay? And it's a tremendous burden on you, the individual taxpayer in Medford, in what your municipality is left with to operate the township. And it's a huge sum of money. So if you're sitting there wondering, well, why does this matter? Because if your neighbor doesn't pay his taxes, guess who's going to? You are. You are essentially paying his tax and then suffering the consequences when that dollar amount reaches a point where we can't make it up and we have to, like the manager said, lay off employees, cut services. It starts to impact you. So what you, as a member of the tax-paying public, need to do is you need to get a copy of the letter that we sent, call that number, get a copy of the letter we sent last year, sign your name to it, and send it to the governor, and send it to your state legislator, and say, we've had enough. We're not doing this anymore. The only way any of it gets fixed is if you start getting involved. And I mean getting involved in a positive way, not a negative way. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's all I have.
Anyone else? Any other questions on the manager's report? Chris? Nothing? Okay. All right, let's move along to the discussion items. First item on the discussion list is the Pinelands Branch Library. And I think where we left off was we had a letter from the freeholders that was offering a one-time reimbursement for this year for expenses related to the library not to exceed $30,000, contingent upon us entering into an agreement with the Library Commission. During last week, along with Councilman Pace and Councilman Beanstalk, we drafted an agreement which was sent to the library. And I have to thank both of them. Another agreement. This is the second agreement. We sent them one back in last August or September, which was not responded to. But we sent them another agreement this week. And again, I have to thank Councilman Pace and especially Councilman Beanstalk for their help in drafting that document. And it was forwarded to the county, and it is now in their hands. And my understanding is Mr. Beanstalk has had some further communications with the Library Commission with regard to the status of that contract. And the contract is essentially accepting their offer, and it's in accordance with the terms of their letter. So if you want to address your conversations.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've had some discussions with Mark Sander, who is on the board of the Library Commission, and with Ralph Schramm, who works in the county's office. We discussed the draft of the agreement, which they received yesterday. I went through it with them. They both reviewed it. Mr. Schramm had some comments, some things that we talked through. Overall, it was a very good discussion. He, in general, is in agreement with the terms that we proposed, which essentially accept what they've proposed. He did ask for some changes that we've discussed, and what I'd like to do, since it's contract negotiations, is to go through them with council in executive session and discuss them. He did say to me that the agreement has been sent to the county solicitor to review, and although they were going to try to get back to me today, he didn't anticipate they'd be able to, and that to the extent the solicitor has any additional comments, they would forward down to us, and we could review them. I think the hope is that the Library Commission is going to consider the agreement at its next meeting, which is 2 weeks from today, same day as our next meeting. And if we come to an agreement on the terms, then we can both approve it and have that agreement signed and executed shortly thereafter. So I think that's definitely the goal. It was a good discussion on both sides. They were both cooperative, and the goal was to try to get an agreement done and get this issue resolved so that we can move forward.
Thank you, Councilman Stock.
That makes it 19 February?
Yep.
Yes. Right now, Mr. Manager, you have some comments with regard to the status.
Yeah, we received an email from a resident regarding issues at the library. We've had nothing from the branch manager, but we did get something from a resident. And I went today, this morning, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours at the library, early with our risk management consultant, part of our joint insurance fund, part of the service they provide and we pay for annually, so it's not an additional expense, it's all wrapped up in a one-time assessment we get through the joint insurance fund.
So that was, we didn't pay for it. In other words, the statements that were made,
There was
relating that we hired someone.
I don't know
More
about
false
any statement, I'm
statements.
just telling you that that's how the process works.
Amazing.
We also had the construction official out there, because the email implies that this is life safety and it's imminent problems. I don't have a written report yet, but based on the observations, there are maintenance issues at the building, but nothing that rose to the level that we had to turn around and drop everything we're doing today. No different than how we assess. We had a neighborhood that called the other day about some trees, potholes. These are typical things that we get on a daily basis that we have to react to. There does need maintenance. I'll just go through, the lighting is very low. Yes, there are some lights out, but it's not dark enough that there's trip hazards, things of that nature. Ladies' room is out of order. The ladies' room was not out of order today. In questioning the library staff, the risk management consultant indicated that at the time there was something on the floor that just hadn't gotten taken care of, but the bathrooms were serviceable today. Caution strip is worn on the library entrance steps. It does need some paint. You know, we're not painting in this weather. I could close that off and make everybody use the ramp. I mean, he didn't seem to think that at this point in time, just put it, again, maintenance, as we get it into our cycle and address it, whether it's through the agreement or not, that's fine. Gutters are pulling away, again, tack them back in, bend them, whatever you gotta do, but nothing imminent that we have to get out there today and deal with it.
And the gutter issue, this isn't something new. We've addressed that a couple of times over the past few years with gutter.
I believe so, yes. Spotlight, I went by tonight on my way here, I know the parking lights the lights in the parking lot are on, I think, so I'm not sure what the spotlight, if there's also a light that shines into the parking lot, I'm gonna go back out, but there is lighting in the parking lot.
I witnessed that last night.
These were the 5 items. He went in, we both did exterior and interior. There are some interior issues that we're gonna have to address with the library commission. They're not the township's responsibility. And, I'm gonna wait until we get the report, that way we can address with them. But there are some concerns with how they're doing things in the building that we have to address. The construction official looked at a couple cracks in the walls on the exterior. Nothing again that's he believes is structural at this time. We need to watch it. It's basic settlement, but we do need to watch those. There's a couple of grates around the back that they've been there. That's an old building. When we address that stuff. Things in front of doors, we moved them. So again, nothing that jumped that we have to turn around tomorrow. And if it was something major that we had to shut down or do something of that nature.
So normal maintenance issues.
Yes.
So the building's not going to fall down.
No. And again, my budget coming to council projects the $30,000 coming from the county, just so council's aware of that, but until that agreement is in place, it's a projection. The state will not allow us to adopt a budget if that funding agreement is not finalized between the parties. So just so everybody's aware of that.
Real quick before we move off of it, Councilman Beanstalk, in that conversation with Ralph, because this agreement is different than most other agreements that the Burlington County Library System has, does it address volunteers? Because historically, volunteers partnered with the Burlington County Library Commissioners and the municipality that was hosting the branch. That's the way it was historically done.
Yeah, we talked about that, and that originally was how it was set up as a tri-party agreement. We changed it in the last draft, the first draft that we sent them, to a two-party agreement.
Well, that was because we don't have that third
Right. and
leg
we
of that
did talk-
stool.
Right, we did talk about that. He asked whether we wanted to make it a third-party agreement, and I said that we didn't have an active Friends of the Library
Well,
Association.
when the public first started approaching me about issues, that was the first thing I said. We don't have a volunteer organization. Historically, there has been one. I encourage, and I've been encouraging this all year long, those organizations are vital to supporting the library. We can get into how we went from volunteers stocking bookshelves to volunteers not doing that any longer. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. That's kind of how they ended up going away. You know, the county hired more employees, they didn't want volunteers doing that, the volunteers didn't want to, they didn't want to be the ones doing the crap work.
He seemed to think that some of the volunteers who had historically done that in Medford wanted to continue to do that. My feeling was that this agreement is an interim agreement. It's a one-year agreement to get us to the point where the county is going to evaluate the library system. I think we as a township need to more closely evaluate what we want our involvement to be, or how we want a library to run. I think there'll be room in future agreements to include that.
I wholeheartedly believe that we need to have the type of agreement we had in the past. 3 organizations, Medford Township, the Burlington County Library System, and a volunteer organization. Now, that by no stretch of the imagination says Medford Township's gonna pay all the bills. That's nonsense. There's enough money in the Burlington County Library System budget to support, you know, that type of arrangement where those volunteers can actually beautify and help the employees that maintain that library, if they so choose, and collect donations, do their bake sales, you know, run the same types of things that the Medford Historical Society is getting ready to talk about here in about 2 minutes. So I just want to make sure in those conversations that, you know, we include the fact that while we may not have one right now, we absolutely would love to have one in the future.
And I think it's certainly open for that. Like I said, this agreement is not meant to be a long-term framework. It's meant to be an interim agreement to get us through this year so that we can continue to evaluate and make some decisions on both sides, us and the county, about how we'd like to see the library going forward.
Outstanding.
Anybody else? I'll just make one comment. I want to clear up some other misinformation that's been put out there that I was questioned a couple times publicly about this week. And that has to do with when we knew about this reimbursement offer. We knew about that when we received that letter that Councilwoman Baloney received part of at the freeholder meeting. At our last council meeting, when we were encouraging residents to go to the freeholder meeting, it was our understanding, and it had been our understanding for months, that the county was going to assume the responsibility of the maintenance of that library, not to just agree to reimburse us for that. So this is something, we sent them our first agreement a long time ago that they sat on. So I just want to make it clear, it's not something that was ignored. And while I can't speak for the rest of the council, my understanding was that they were assuming the responsibility, not just agreeing to reimburse us. Thank you.
So there was no offer of $30,000 reimbursement last September or August?
No.
No.
No, I didn't think there was.
There was an offer.
No, there
Not
was
for
not.
reimbursement.
Not for
Not for
reimbursement.
No, there was not. Here's what we got in July of 2012. This is to the manager from the freeholder direct. It was brought to my attention late Monday that Medford Township Council will convene an executive session this evening to discuss the Pinelands Branch Library and specifically the Burlington County Branch Library Agreement. Moreover, I've just become aware that council has received a recent correspondence from the commission asking that the agreement, which is due for renewal in April, be signed and returned. The only reason that agreement was not signed was the third party to that agreement didn't exist. I couldn't legally sign a contract with somebody that had no legal authority to sign a contract. And the terms of that contract were just not something Medford was going to be able to do or meet in 2012 or 2013. So it didn't get signed. The letter goes on to say the commission indicated that should the agreement go unsigned, that it would be compelled to begin transferring staff and materials to other locations. I fully understand the fiscal crisis that has gripped Medford Township and its residents. Let's be clear on this. It was in February of last year that I began this process. And in February of last year, the five of us were this deep in budget considerations and getting out to the public and trying to explain to them why their taxes had to go up. And I was not about to enter into another agreement that shoves Medford taxpayer dollars out the door while the Burlington County Library System is shoveling their tax dollars to pay the county's bills. The letter goes on to say, I fully understand the fiscal crisis that has gripped Medford Township and its residents. This is to advise that I stand ready and willing to meet with you and representatives of the governing body to discuss how we can address the financial issues facing the library. I didn't realize there were financial issues facing the library. I mean, certainly not the Burlington County Library System, for which the Pinelands branch is a part of. They have $1 million surplus every year. And ensure that it remains open and available to Medford residents and patrons from neighboring towns. That was in July. Since July, we get a letter from Lee Arter in November saying, you know, well, yeah, we're going to give you this much this year and then we're going to close it unless you build us a new one. Second, I reach out to the Library Commission and ask that it take no action intended to close the library or eliminate programs and services. Programs and services. This will give us an opportunity to discuss finances and ideas for funding. I look forward to hearing from you. That was in July of 2012. It was shortly after we received this letter that you, I, the township manager, Mr. Schultz, Ralph Schramm, Lee Arter, and Bruce Gargano, and one of the other county minions, I don't remember who it was, attended the meeting. And we all sat in a room there at 49 Rancocas Road in Mount Holly, and I said, hey, I've been beating this drum since February. I contacted the Burlington County Library System. They told me it wasn't their problem, it was a freeholder problem. I went to Marianne O'Brien and said, hey, Marianne, this is an issue. You're from Medford. This is an issue. We need to get our arms around this. Then we got a letter from the county saying we're closing your library. So we walked into that meeting and that's where we were at. And the first thing that I was met with was, well, I didn't know anything about it. I was campaigning. I don't have time for this. I'll address it after the end of the year. I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. It's completely and utterly unacceptable. And since that time, and there was nothing during that meeting that said, we're going to pay your bills. What they said was, we'll look at it. What we want to do is do a study of all the branches, and we want to create a new volunteer organization that will fund all these little shortfalls. That's what they said during that meeting.
But they also talked about $30,000 for 2013.
What
to
they
get us
talked about was, what is it you're looking for? What was the dollar amount? The dollar amount I gave them was $30,000. They made zero commitment to meet that $30,000 shortfall. They just wanted to know what we were talking about. And nothing was gonna get done until after the election. Those are the facts.
I don't remember them saying nothing was going to get done until after the election. I remember them saying that it needs approval from the full freeholder.
Okay, I have all the emails regarding this issue. I have them all. Everything that has been said between Medford Township and the county freeholders and the Burlington County Library System, I have everything. I don't throw anything away. I have it all. There was never, at that meeting, nothing. There was no offer made, nothing. The only thing we had at that meeting was, we'll look at it. That's all they said, we're gonna look at it. And then they didn't. For the next 3 months after that meeting, every email I sent, I got, that's all I got. So I went to a freeholder meeting and said, look guys, here's what the county budget says, here's what the library budget says, we need to fix this. Okay? This is where the rubber meets the road. There was no offer of $30,000 at that meeting in July. What the freeholder said was, what is it you need? Well, what is that number? What are we talking about here? What's your maintenance and utility costs? And I told them they were roughly $30,000. That's what we were looking at. They made no commitment at that time. The commitment that Mr. Garganio made was that he was going to work on it. He didn't see any reason why we couldn't come to some sort of agreement. After that meeting, Freeholder Arter's comments were, well, this isn't an issue for the freeholders. We're not even going to put it on our agenda.
Well,
That was much later.
It was much later, because that was the next response I got when I went back to the freeholders and said, hey, what gives? What's going on, guys? Where are we at?
all right, well, that was in her letter.
We sent you a contract in August. Where are we at on it? Have you looked at it? Have you reviewed it?
All right, the issue is that, last year, whether or not they were aware of the number is one thing, but they made no commitment for 2012, which we completed the year.
Which we completed the year.
We completed the
paying
year,
that.
picking up the expenses,
Right.
and that we were going to address the issue in 2013, which we have addressed. Freeholder Arter drafted this letter making the offer. Subsequently, we drafted an agreement, which is in front of them now, for their review and comment. And it looks like in a very short while, we're going to have an agreement with them. I'd just like to point out that letter that was sent, it was pointed out in that letter that Medford was asking for something that was unique amongst all the branch libraries, that in fact, we were asking for reimbursement of expenses when no other branch library in the system received reimbursement for expenses, when in fact, the Bordentown Library is actually owned by the county and is a branch library, and they receive all their expenses fully paid by the county. And if you've ever had an opportunity to go to the Bordentown Library, I suggest you do so, because it's beautiful. Absolutely a gorgeous building. And they pay for it lock, stock, and barrel. And oh, by the way, the residents of Bordentown City, 3,900 residents, they contribute about $160,000 a year to library tax. And they get their library fully funded. And we contribute for 23,000 residents close to $1 million.
Do we know they own that building? I know, I looked it up on the county tax rolls. The building
Nobody
doesn't
knows.
appear.
Nobody knows who owns it.
It's not on the tax
It's not on the
rolls.
tax
rolls.
rolls. It's a mysterious building.
Well, the one thing that I did see is a budget item where they were receiving $60,000 more than any other branch, which was for their utilities. Now, I did check the Bordentown budget, and they did not have listed in their revenue any appropriation from the county. That $60,000 didn't appear, so it would be my assumption that from their perspective, that thing is off the books. I also found this RFP from the county to repair their elevators, and listed on there is the Bordentown Library elevator. So the idea that every other branch is doing this, Now, here's the thing, I don't believe in wealth redistribution, okay? And it's surprising, because, I always thought, hey, look, let's be political for a second, they're Republicans, right? I always didn't think Republicans were in favor of wealth redistribution. But these Republicans apparently are, because they're taking $1 million out of your town, okay? They're giving you a library, which I would now say the condition of disrepair has been greatly exaggerated, and I would say that was politically motivated as well. That's a separate issue, okay? But what they've done is they've trampled on Medford. And I think it's been pretty clearly documented here that the power bosses who run this county have trampled on our town. I think the $70 million in debt that we've incurred, I think the no-bid contracts, all this stuff has demonstrated a pattern here of control that has not been in Medford's best interest. And we're not going to do it anymore. And I know that there's people that want to enable this behavior, but we're taking a stand here. We pay $1 million into this system. I want my money's worth. I visited that library. It was immaculate. It was beautiful. I actually had a conversation with the head of children's program. And I was amazed by the mural, and I asked her who paid. I said, do you have volunteers come in here and paint that? She said, no, we can't get volunteers. I said, well, it must be a tremendous burden on the township. She said, we don't call the township, we call the county. They come here and do the repairs. Now, the only substantiation I could find was an RFP where they call it their library or their elevator. So given her testimony, what she told me, it wasn't testimony, but what she told me, and I gotta tell you, I mean, carpet's new, the trim, it's amazing. Somebody is giving great, I love the fireplace, the area with the gas fireplace in the reading center. Or when you walk in the foyer with the new tile floor and the seating area. Even better was the family restroom with the wheelchair lift. And the kids area, the kids programming area was amazing. Not just all their new book area, but they had a separate room with murals and tile floor, brand new cabinets.
Do they have a volunteer organization?
They do.
They do.
They do. They have a Friends of the Bordentown Library.
And maybe the volunteer organization paid for that, but here's what I do know.
Aren't they flush with cash?
I know this. I know that, and Randy, you've documented this, that was it 2009? The Burlington County Library System gave $3.5 million to, and there was an article that was circulated where Chris Brown, okay, was a freeholder at the time, and he said we need to stop taking money out of the library, and we need to manage our resources better at the county. They're taking money, they're taking your library tax. Not only are they underfunding your library, okay, not only are they not adequately providing us with the resources that we've paid for, but then they're pulling money out of it and they're paying money towards county obligations. Okay? Now, that sounds like wealth redistribution to me. I don't think it should be an American value, let alone a Republican value. It makes me sick. And I'm done with letting them get away with it. I'm just done. So that's my page.
There's a fine woman in Medford by the name of Judith Adams. She used to serve on this body. She ran an organization in Medford called the Medford Library Association. And I'm sure at one time it was a vibrant organization. It no longer exists. We need to revitalize that organization so that we can have our own volunteer organizations enter into a contract with the county library system. The one they have in Bordentown, net assets or fund balances at the end of the year, $150,608. I imagine Medford Library Association, the most they probably ever had was probably, I don't know, what do you guess, Beth? Maybe $3,000, $4,000 at the most, if ever. If anybody knows Judith, ask her how much money they ever had at the most.
But your tax
It's
dollars
probably
are
a little bit, it's probably a little less, somewhere underneath 150.
Right, and I mean, to answer the question with regard to the ownership of Bordentown, the article today in today's Inquirer quotes the county library system director as saying that with the exception of Bordentown, all the 9 branch library buildings are owned by the municipalities in which they are situated, and the municipalities pay for their upkeep.
Hey, did you notice the change in language after the deputy mayor was there asking questions of their staff?
The mayor, after the freeholder director said that nobody else gets their stuff paid for?
I think they connected the dots and started changing what they said.
All right, anything else on the
Sorry, I
list?
don't trust these people.
Anything else? No? All right, let's move along to the Still property. Councilman Pace. Mr. Manager.
Well, actually, if I could, I'm gonna have, I'm gonna have Beth Corticalis come up. We attended a meeting, real quick, we attended a meeting earlier this week, with the state parks, as it relates to the Webster and Still property out on Church Road. You may have seen something in the paper here not long ago regarding the Dr. Still house and an old farmhouse next door they're trying to renovate. The state parks own the properties. They're interested in cleaning them up and making them viable park resources. But they don't have the funding. They don't have the money to pay it. Everybody's broke. Nobody has any money, including Medford. And that's the first thing we told them when we first met with them was, we don't have any money either. There's a couple of organizations that stepped up, and I'm amazed at the level of intellect, the level of time, effort, and actually their ability to bring together volunteers to make something like this go. And they're being told daily, that state doesn't have any money. No, Medford doesn't have any money. But they're moving forward, and they're gonna make it go. I was hoping that Valerie Still would be here this evening. She was out of town, she was on her way back into town. She wasn't sure she was gonna be able to make it. But nonetheless, we have Janet Jackson Gould from the Historical Society. I know that Bill was here as well. He got a phone call and left. Hope everything's all right. At any rate, here's where we stand right now. Both those properties are gems. One's on the National Registry. The future, and when I say future, I couldn't begin to tell you right now whether it's going to be in a year or 3 years. The future for those buildings is bright. And it's bright because the right people are working on this. What's going to happen is the state, assuming the governing body gets on board with this and are willing to enter into a contract with the state, a management agreement. The state is willing to put together a management agreement and say, here are the parameters. It's a historical site. We want to see it improve. Medford Township, if you want to partner with a nonprofit and make this go, we give you almost unfettered access. Yeah, there are certain regulations that we have to meet, but and without telling you that anything is going to be done underhandedly, because believe me, it's not. They're willing to relax. They're willing to back off and not hold your feet to the fire for every single minute detail of these types of restoration. Now, is it going to have to be identified? Yes. Is somebody going to have to give approval that we deviate? Yes. Basically, we're here this evening. I'm giving you guys a heads up. That's broad brush where we're at. The cost share for Medford Township right now is nothing more than minimal manpower of staff. You know, the nonprofits are going to apply for the grants. The staff is gonna, sign off for the township, yes, we're aware of this. It comes through the governing body. We're simply the pass-through between the state and the nonprofit. Okay? I would really, really like your support in moving this forward. If you have any questions, Beth Porticalis is here, a representative from the Historical Society is here. I'm here, obviously the state's not, but that's where we're at. Did I miss anything? Aside from the fact that it really is a great story behind the whole deal, and it's going to involve more than just the Historical Society.
Thank you, Councilman Pace. And thank you, Councilor. With this project, Medford Township was involved in the past. In 2006, when the state acquired the Still office property, the Medford Township actually contributed money to partially fund a rehabilitation study on the property. As crazy as it seems, the state cannot apply for state money. So there was a state grant to fund the study, but it required a cash match, hence Medford participated. The study was completed. The state subsequently obtained and purchased the adjoining property for the future use of the whole Still office area. It sat fallow for several years, and with the blessings of the council and Manager Schultz, we convened a meeting with state officials, prodded in some degree by the Historical Society and other interested residents who had taken an interest in the property. And again, we've come to the point where we've, yes, there's a very large contingent of engaged residents that are involved. The direct descendants of Dr. Still are involved. We facilitated a meeting with the state, as Councilman Pace mentioned, and in that, there would be a memorandum of use agreement on the property, which the state indicated they would like the municipality to take the lead. The Historical Society, then the township would subsequently, probably at the same meeting, go into a secondary agreement with the Historical Society, which would basically take all the responsibilities from the township to the Historical Society. And there's precedent with this recently with the Sawyer House, which the Historical Society, the township owns it. There's an agreement between the township and the Historical Society on that property. And the president of the Historical Society, Bill Stotts, actually has a draft agreement, just waiting for the council's approval to move forward with the project. And at that time, the state is prepared to offer us a management and use agreement. So again, not really going to cost the township any financial money other than some staff time to oversee the administrative aspects of this. But at the end result, the Webster farmhouse, which was on the Bunny Farm, can be relatively easily remodeled to be immediately occupied. That will help with some of the vandalism issues and things that have been occurring on the properties. And then subsequently, it will give the state the impetus to start to fund the rehabilitation of the Still property, which would become a cultural, artistic, historic destination, which would then reap economic benefits for the township long-term.
Yeah. Valerie Still is in the process of setting up a foundation aside from Medford's Historical Society. And she really does bring to bear considerable, or potentially a considerable amount of money and interest. Her focus is the Still house, okay, that Still property, it's the doctor's old office. Whereas the Historical Society's focus is both. But they gotta get the Webster house up and running before they can focus time and effort on the Still property. So actually, it works out well that, all this is coming together the way it is. Certainly, Valerie Still would like to see that property get done pretty quick so that it falls in line with some of the other things that she has going on. I'm real sorry that she didn't make it this evening, but first opportunity we have, I would like for all of you to have the opportunity to meet her. She's quite an interesting woman.
Yeah, this contingent is actually sponsoring this symposium on the 23rd at Medford Lee's that's focusing on the Still family legacy and, the impact not only in Medford but in all South Jersey.
Now, what's the When can we expect to see that agreement?
Well, actually, the state, if we get your blessings tonight, the state, actually, in the state timeframe will fast track it. So, within 30 days, we will probably have a draft agreement that we can circulate amongst the town administration. And like I said, Bill Stotts has already forwarded a subsequent sub-agreement, which, if I'm correct, Chris, they could be on the same agenda, that we could approve the one with the state and then subsequently approve a second one with the Historical Society.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
So what do we need to do here?
Just questions and concerns that you might have entering this
No, I
kind
mean,
of
in
agreement.
terms of approval or?
Council just wants the voice vote consent to progress the project under the discussion, as discussed.
What's the time frame for the project?
Once the contracts and things are approved, I think the bunning house, the farmhouse can be occupied fairly quickly. There was some vandalism in the property, so the state would have to do some HVAC work to restore heating, electricity. But I think that, you're probably talking a 3 to 6 month window to have that occupied. The still office has to undergo major rehabilitation work, and that's what, once this group is in there, I think that will help the state, put it into their funding cycles, because ultimately the state will have to bear all the costs for the rehabilitation of the still property itself. And that may be a 2 to 3 to 4 year process.
So our involvement of it is limited to the bunning house, or is it on both?
Well, the state wants to treat both, even though they're separate lot blocks and separate parcels, they want to treat it as one use agreement. But with the understanding that, we would have almost immediate occupancy of the Bunning farmhouse. The state ultimately is not going to transfer the responsibility for the rehabilitation of the still office to the township or the historical society. But right now, it's just would be like, keeping the grounds, care of the house, making sure that everything's buttoned down there. But having a physical presence there, I think, will help cut some of the vandalism issues that have been experienced up there.
And we would be the applicant for grants? Is that what's-
That all has to be ironed out. There are grants that the state makes available. The Historical Society,
Depends on the type of grant.
right, the Historical Society can be the lead applicant on some of those. Some of those may require the township to be the applicant. And then, but obviously any grant agreement would have to be with stipulation that the match would have to come from a source outside of township funds.
So what is it that you're looking for from us tonight? Approval for what exactly?
Tacit approval to move forward with some, we talked about this last year, and the township has been working this process for a while. We simply came to another fork in the road. We've got the state on board with saying, yes, you can move in this direction. We have the Historical Society, a nonprofit, and people within the township. There were 80 volunteers out at that property on one of the coldest days of the year cleaning up, because they want to have a positive impact in the community. So, again, essentially this evening, yes, let's continue moving forward. We have not been presented with a contract. We're not legally liable to sign anything, because we say we want to move forward and continue to look into it.
This is just blessings to enter into negotiations with the state. Any agreement will have to come back before you as an official document, then as would any sub-agreement with the Historical Society.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
We need a voice vote or motion for
You need to
approval?
voice vote.
Voice vote for approval and moving forward with the contract negotiations for the Webster and Stoll properties. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So you have your approval. All right, anything else for discussion? If not, I'm going to open the meeting to the public. Anybody in the public having any comments, questions with regard to anything on the agenda, with regard to any township business, township services, I'd ask you to step forward to the microphone, and I'd ask you to state your name and your address for the record. Ms. Cool.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm pleased with what you just did. I'm Janet Jackson Gould, 121 North Lakeside Drive, East Bedford. I'm the Vice President for Programs of the Historical Society. And I'd just like to say a word for those who don't know about Dr. James Still, the so-called Black Doctor of the Pines. He was born the son of slaves in Shimano, Bedford border, one of 16 children, and he had about 3 months formal schooling. He was apprenticed out for various things, and from that poor start, he became an herbalist and a well-known healer and doctor that was used by people of all races in Medford and environs. And in the end, he became one of the wealthiest and most respected members of Burlington County. So his accomplishments and those of his large family are very important to the community. And I just also want to say that this was the first African-American site, and I believe still the only one, ever acquired by the state, which makes it doubly important. I think it will bring tourists to Medford, but the most important thing is an education program. We've outlined an education program for the Medford schools and other students, both there and going into the schools on many levels. And the thing about getting the farmhouse up and running, it will give us a base to start those programs right away in the fall, so that we don't have to wait for the couple of years that it will take to renovate the office building. So we appreciate your blessings, and we look forward to a program that will really help Bedford and its children. Thank you.
Thank you for everything you've done here, and we look forward to assisting in whatever way we can with preserving that legacy of those properties and Dr. Still. Ms. Bianchi.
George Junkin, 13 Region Gaming Zone. As I stood here 2 weeks ago, we were kicking around the volunteer effort. We weren't sure where we were going. We attended the freeholder meeting and been listening to all the input and kind of been taking a back seat, waiting to see how the dust settled and where we were going to go with that. And I knew about the consultant going over to the library today with Mr. Schultz. I was waiting to hear some of the suggestions. Much of that stuff was on our list, and a lot of that stuff we had planned on doing. And again, we were just waiting to see what our role was going to be. And obviously it's a township-owned building, so we had to seek your approval before we proceed with any repairs. This Sunday's going to be 50 degrees. That paint strip is something I could probably accomplish in a very short period of time. The lights, given an hour or two, we could probably get all the lights up and working. So again, we were looking to do the minor things. We weren't looking to get into a lot of that stuff. And I do have a licensed contractor that I have his opinion and his expertise and his tools and equipment willing to put into place on some of the things that I may not be up to snuff with. One of the things that I thought maybe the council should consider in light of the reimbursement amount was the shingled roof. I don't know if you guys took a look at that, what you thought about that roof. I called a roofer, a local roofer in town, and I thought I'd give you the package that he sent me with his estimate. I didn't tell him what we were going to be reimbursed as not to taint his estimate, and whether the township sells the building or whether they keep the building. I think the roof is a good place to start for that kind of money. The flashing was loose around some of the chimneys. Those shingles are probably date back to '72 when the building was put in, so I think we've gotten our money's worth out of those. And again, I think that's something you should consider, because you don't know if that roof starts to fail, what kind of damage it could be doing to the interior of the structure. So.
Just a quick question, was this a roofer, a friend of yours, or?
No, Bradley roofer, Chris Bradley, right in town.
What prompted you, just so you know, there's actually an RFP process.
I know there is. I was just trying to get a ballpark as to what kind of money.
That's worthless, you understand that, right?
Well, it gives you a ballpark as to what the roof would cost.
There's actually a legal.
Chris, I understand how the process works.
Well, I don't think you do based on what you just did.
I understand the process.
Okay.
Now I know if you guys were to replace the roof, you'd have to put it out to bid. And obviously, he would resubmit his bid along with any other bids you might entertain.
See, now you just put in a public, now you made his bid public, so other bidders
Chris,
can look at it.
Chris, you do what you want
Let's
to do.
not put him at a
Do what you want
disadvantage.
with Chris.
Mr. Youngkin, if I may,
Yes, sir.
one of the first things this governing body did was to make all the necessary people that are part of this process aware of what was going on. That was done last year.
I said this was all that already, Randy.
I appreciate the fact that you want to help. If you want to establish that volunteer organization, I applaud you for that. I encourage you to do so. You're familiar with Judith Adams. She has all of that stuff in place from years ago. All it takes is for a group of volunteers to take that model and move it forward. Nobody's preventing anyone from volunteering. Nobody's preventing any of this stuff from getting done. It's not a function of this governing body to stop people from doing
All right.
things.
Mr. Manager, you heard what Mr. Youngkin offered to do. I mean, you're in charge of maintenance.
I'm happy to meet with Mr. Youngkin and set up this, some of this stuff.
Okay, because it is within your purview to
Yeah.
have the maintenance done.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't require our approval.
No, I mean, we're within a temporary budget, so we're limited in what we might be able to provide as far as any materials or things like that, unless that's being donated as well, but, you know, we'll keep track, assuming the county's doing, you know, if between volunteer effort and any expense that we might have, we can figure that out. So, you know, if you wanna email me, we'll set up a meeting and we'll just go from there.
I mean,
That's fine. Now, do we want to, or is there an interest in like reinvigorating the Friends of the Medford Library?
You want me to come back up?
Yeah, because I think that would be a really positive step.
I'll give you my opinion on that. I don't know how many people have been around 20 years, maybe a few members can remember having meetings at Cranberry Hall. And that's where council met, and that's where the last time I saw Judy Adams. I mean, occasionally I've seen her walking in town on a festival, but she's not, I mean, I don't know if she's successful or not. And her husband passed away some time ago. She really, I don't know what her activity level is. But I understand that the group of people that were participating in that were, you know, active years ago, but they have been inactive of late. So, you know, I'm getting the impression that either they're not physically able to keep up with that work, or I don't know the parameters of that, but, you know, I have a group of people, a group of volunteers that are enthusiastic, much like the Dr. Still project, all that enthusiasm, much like the Medford Freedom Park cleanup that we participated in. You know, that's a ball you want to keep rolling. We're just looking to capture some of that little enthusiasm.
And you know something, Mr. Youngkin, in that regard, it doesn't have to be Friends of Medford Library, it can be
Right.
Friends of Medford.
Exactly.
And it can be a volunteer
Anybody that wants
organization
to
established
come out
to
participate.
do it
Exactly.
everywhere.
Exactly.
It's just that it makes it easier.
There's no
for us.
reason to do that.
You know, if we have an official organization, that would make it a lot easier, because then we can actually formalize some agreements and get this stuff going. You know, that would give us something to work
It
with.
takes away the roadblocks, first of all. It takes away the ridiculous level of red tape that Trenton hands us every day.
Well, you know, I understand your point, but I mean, when we did all the rest of those volunteer efforts, we didn't have an organization of Friends of Medford Freedom Park.
right,
We're
but power
not
washing a
talking-
sidewalk in a park is a lot different than working on a building.
We're
The
talking
volunteer,
about,
it's a lot
The
different.
mechanics of operating a pressure washer are far greater than what we propose to do there as far as
Okay.
putting
But
some
washing
nuts and bolts
washing a
and
sidewalk,
putting some paint down.
washing a sidewalk and putting some mulch down.
Yeah, but you should have seen the mayor with his toolbox there trying to fix that thing. That's pretty
He's a
involved.
township employee.
He's a township employee.
Wait a second, it was my pressure washer. Listen, I understand what you're saying, but we're involved, again, there was a contract in place. There was already a contract in place. We were being asked by the Burlington County Library System to commit an illegal act. That's what it amounts to. Sign this contract with these people that don't exist. They can't do that.
Well, you're saying that they don't exist on one hand, and the other hand, you're telling me to contact these people and try to reinvigorate their program? Well, which is it?
Start your own.
They don't exist.
They exist or they don't exist?
They don't exist. Medford Library Association. What I mean, they don't exist, when you establish a nonprofit charitable organization in the state of New Jersey, you can't just take people's money and say, well, we're gonna go do some good with it. You have to be a licensed, you have to have an EIN, you have to report to the state. You know, that's the way it works. They don't have an EIN, they're not an established reporting agency.
They're defunct.
They're defunct. But they know how it gets done. Bill Stouts. I tell you what, if anybody in Medford knows how to establish that type of organization, he's the guy. There's dozens of people in Medford that know how to make that go. What I'm trying to encourage you to do, and what I encourage you to do from step one, was make that happen. That makes your job easier, it makes our job easier, and it holds nobody responsible if something goes wrong. That's the bottom line. I have sat at the long end of the green table when somebody didn't follow the rules. And again, the taxpayers take it in the shorts, and I'm not gonna let Medford Township take it in the shorts.
And at the end of the day, Jim, that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to follow the rules and the procedures so that nothing does happen, so that, you know, somebody isn't standing up here, 6 months from now saying, you guys didn't follow the rules, now we're getting sued over it. And you know what? You guys are stupid because you didn't follow the rules. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to follow the rules. That's why he went and got the risk management consultant to assess the building. And he's gonna have him assess our other buildings as well. I mean, it's part of a process, so we can get together a comprehensive list, and we can prioritize it, so that we can put the appropriate resources towards it, and determine what resources we have to throw at it. That's the process.
So we're aware, he was not just in town today to help me look at the library. Every year, or every 2 years, he's required to come look at all our buildings, any asset 50 years or older. So he was not just here for the library, part of that process, and that's part of what we pay for in our assessment.
We're not trying to put roadblocks up. No, there's a process to everything. I mean, that's the way government works. Anybody else? Public comment? Mr. Stouts?
First, it's Stouts. I've been calling you Stouts all. I'm so sorry. Yes,
Stouts?
It doesn't matter.
That's what you call me.
It's spelled
I'm still
dog.
butcher my name, so.
Your check, there, that check.
Or just call me Bill, like everybody else. I'm sorry I had to run out, I wasn't here during the discussion in the Still Webster House, and I guess you are aware that me as president of the Historic Society is heavily involved in everything that's going on, and heavily endorse it, and also you should have my letter to every effect. I guess it went to the state. But I just wanted to let you know briefly that I'm heavily involved and make sure that it's done right. And the Historic Society is collecting the money in a separate account to handle just that project. And that's all it goes to dedicated funds to do that.
Thank you. We appreciate
Like
your
I said,
time.
Bill, I'm holding you personally.
Thank you,
No
Mr.
doubt,
Stouts.
you'll let me know.
Anyone else?
Stouts.
Mr. DeSantis, please.
Chris DeSantis, Good Great Bridge Court. Along the line of Chris's comment earlier about the wealth redistribution and looking at this freedom parking, isn't that part of that same sort of scam that our re-elected Republicans at the county level did? Where they had 1% come back, which we should have got 400,000, we had to beg for 250. think isn't that part of that same type of situation? First of all, George, we're lucky to have you. I mean, I really think that, you know, we are lucky to have you. Hopefully you can get that thing together, because I think that you can do a lot of good work. You do a lot of good stuff on you. Question on resolution 34-2013 and 35-2013. There's a little kind of bottom over the life of the agreement, the total average cost is 1%, and it alludes to healthcare expenditures. Can I get a little more detail on the healthcare expenditures and cost shares there?
I'll do it collectively, because they're pretty identical.
Yeah, that's
Pretty much the same.
Yeah, and I'll just go right through. The current 2012 salary, and I'll start from the top, $806,252. Then there's this provision of a meal allowance that bumped it up to $808,921. With 2013, it would be a 0% increase with a roll-in of $100 to eliminate that salary, that meal allowance. The new base is $808,252, so it's less than what we were paying last year. 2014, there's one more roll-in, and there's a 1.75% increase in July, so there's an 18-month window of no increase as far as the salary goes. And in 2015, July, again, 2% increase. The base, and then this is salary right now I'm talking about. So the extra cost for 3 years is $24,754, which is the average cost increase per year is $8,251, which is 1.1% on average. Then you have some overtime savings of about $3,000 to $4,000 annually. They get call-in time of 4 hours now. That's been reduced to 2 hours. Uniforms, there's a slight increase in uniforms. Healthcare, our cost $294,800 for these. For the contributions now under the state law, you know, for this group, because it's a small group, it's about $8,600 in 2013. It jumps up to $17,000 in 2014, and then $26,000 when the state law maxes out in the third year of the agreement. That's a contribution per the law.
What is that percentage end up being?
1.5%, or it depends on the tiers, and this is a group that's not hitting the bigger tiers.
Mm-hmm.
So, the other things that this group has provided, new hires are required to pay 50% cost of health retirement when they retire, up until age 65, when all retirees now go to Part B, which is a big issue for us because of legacy costs. Current employees are also paying 25%. At that point, when they retire, they pay 25% up until they hit 65. Right now, we carry them until they pass away. So it's a big deal for the township.
I know. I didn't say nothing.
I know. So, you know, again, it's a very small group, not a lot going back and forth, but I think what they've provided is a carryover of what we started with the fire union last year. We extended a little bit with this group on, especially in retirement part of this. And, you know, overall, it provides sustainable, it's pretty flat over the course of the next 3 years, which we're trying to do.
Stays within the cap, which
Yes,
is,
yes, 2%.
you know, we all like zero, but it stays
Yes.
within the cap.
Yeah,
And so this closes 2 more union contracts,
yes,
Correct.
and we close the firefighters.
that was last year.
So now how many do we have left?
Two.
Police?
Both police. And we're still negotiating.
Okay. And, Chris, I gotta tell you, I mean, you know, this, like I said about George, and I really think about you, I mean, I'm a big advocate, I think we're lucky to have you, and it really does amaze me at some point that, you know, we are wasting a lot of your time on this stuff. I mean, and, you know, you've been nothing but spectacular to me, and reaching out to you, and your timely responses, and how willing you are to take your time to answer what to me might seem important, but to you might seem not so important, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, we have to free you up to do your job.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't want people to think I do respond, but on top, the forum that it's coming out in, I don't even read, you know, I
Well, that was where I was heading. I mean, if there's a question, I only encourage everybody out there, email Chris directly. I mean, I've done it on a Sunday night and get an answer, you know, sometimes 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning when you might be doing some reading or something and my email happens to come across your desk. I always, but I always get a reply, and it's always timely. And I appreciate it, and I think the township appreciates it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Wolf.
I know we have to do a, at 25 Bearhead Road, I know we have to do a 501c, and we have to get a federal ID number. I'm willing to make that happen. I work in an accounting firm, and I can get that done tomorrow. I can get the number, I can get the SS4, and I can start the 501c. So if anybody really wants to start the library under a 501c, I'll do the paperwork.
You would need organization documents.
I know, yeah, but we have to, I
And you
need
can
that.
mirror what they already have.
What they already
Add
have,
to it,
yes.
whatever you want to it.
But there's filing fee and so on for the
Yeah.
state, yes.
Yeah,
For the nonprofit.
but I can get it started.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, I have the forms.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anyone else? If not, can I have a motion to close the public portion? So moved. Second, Chris. Please, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Public portion's closed. Let's move on with the agenda here. Next item would be the bills. And we have a number of items on the bill list. List dated 1/29/13. Actually, two lists dated 1/29/13. Three lists dated 1/30/13, and one list dated 1/31/13, and another list dated 2/5/13. Are there any questions with regard to the bill list? I know that a number of questions were posed to the CFO, and she answered those questions. Anybody else have any additional questions?
Just, can I direct a question about the playground equipment that were replaced? All that. I have permission. I was just curious, was this damaged because of wear and tear, or was there some kind of vandalism?
No, this was wear and tear, this was not a vandalism situation.
All right, there's been a lot of that lately. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's rather expensive because the way that playground manufacturers do it. You can't just buy a swing seat, you have to buy the whole swing, chain,
Right.
S-hooks. And, you know, we had total component repairs on a couple of major pieces.
That was an item for $9,000, in case anyone was looking. And there was another issue where it looked like there may have been an almost duplicate healthcare payment, but that was like happy that one was actually for January, February.
Right, it was just when we go ahead and hit, it's a recurring purchase order that we do for the year, and when we did it, we just didn't take the invoice and convert it to February.
No.
Not a double payment.
Other question, I noticed there was some repair work done on Bendy that was related to that issue, that the fence, that when I was out there, I sent you pictures of that. Now, my understanding is there's also some vandalism damage down at Medford Park or down at Bob Meyer Park. Slats were kicked out.
Bob Meyer,
Bob Meyer Park.
that was vandalism. However, the Bob Meyer Park Committee actually has a maintenance fund that when they raise the money to build the playground and the matching money, and this goes back all the way to the original playground. So that money was actually paid for through the Bob Meyer Park Committee. We oversaw the work. They have a handyman that they have contracted who did the work. So I just checked it yesterday morning, and it's all repaired.
It's all repaired.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing this out there when we're talking about parks. Our paper bandage truck again at Freedom Park. It's really, you know, there is a reward, just letting everybody know it's still out there, but, you know, it's really.
Whereabouts? Around the skate park?
No, this, police reported last night into this morning on patrol, they discovered it was all over the park. So along the walkway, all the way back to the roundabout that goes to the Woodridge development, all the way through the park, around the playground, and then carried over to the skate park.
They were just building a new teepee.
Oh, okay.
That's all they were doing.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other?
Mr. Mayor, just one correction on the agenda. The last list on the agenda is the 2-5, it should actually be 1.
Or 2-1?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, corrections about the bills? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
Oh, wait, there was one item for printing in there. It says printing fulfillment management, which might be PFM group, and that's a client of mine. I'm not sure if it is or not.
It is.
Oh,
the
it's
same
Chip
company.
Chandler?
It is
Okay,
the
yeah, I
same
have
company.
to recuse from that particular item.
Okay, that's
That's-
fine.
that's
That's so noted that you're going to recuse yourself from that particular item. But do I have a motion to approve the bill list dated 1/29/13, 1/30/13, 1/31/13, and 2/1/13?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Second. Thank you, Mr. Beanstalk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, next item, we have no ordinances for second public reading. We do have 2 ordinances for first public reading. And can I have a motion for approval of ordinance 2013-2?
Make a motion to approve on first reading ordinance 2013-2, an ordinance amending section 136, towing of vehicles with respect to insurance and storage yard requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Beanstalk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Beanstalk?
Aye.
Mr. Pace?
Aye.
Mr. Watson?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Baloney?
Aye.
Mayor Checklight?
Aye.
Public hearing will be on the 9th.
Public hearing on the 19th. Mr. Solicitor, could you just give us a brief summary of what that ordinance entails?
Sure. One of the towers raised an issue with the storage yard requirements. So one of the things we did was, in connection with the police chief, we looked at how many vehicles have been towed per year for the last 2 years. Found that the prior ordinance requirement of 40, storage for 40 vehicles was excessive. You only need 20. We want to make sure that we have enough towers to qualify for our ordinance to meet the township needs. So that change was made for that. The other one on the insurance requirements, there was an inadvertent draft that had $5 million insurance requirement, which very much limit the number of towers. That this ordinance change corrects that, brings it down to $1 million, which was the standard from the prior ordinance. So,
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? None? All right, the second ordinance for first reading is ordinance 2013-3. Do I have a motion for ordinance 2013-3?
I move that ordinance 2013-3, amending the Medford Township Code at section 71-23, fees schedule for discovery in municipal court matters pursuant to the January 1st, 2013 amendment to the New Jersey Rules of Court R7:7-7I be passed on first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Watson. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Beanstalk?
Aye.
Mr. Pace?
Aye.
Mr. Watson?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Baloney?
Aye.
Mayor Checklight?
Aye. And the date for public hearing is again February 19th.
Just so the council's aware, there is a corresponding resolution that acts as a bridge while council processes this through the normal appropriate process, and that is because the court rules are already in place, and so we want to be compliant with the state law and the court rules.
25-2000.
Thank you. Could you again give us a short summary of the reason?
the New Jersey court rule was adopted on January 1st and essentially set the fees across the state for which you can charge for municipal court discovery. The fees are very much in line with what the Oprah fees are, essentially. And previously, the township ordinance approved 75 cents a page. So if you're requesting discovery and you have a municipal court matter in this township, you're going to get a cost break. So,
All right, so it's just conforming legislation.
yes.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, consent agenda resolutions. We'll go through these, quite a few of them. We have nothing that we're going to pull at this time. Excuse me?
Yeah, nobody contacted me on any.
Oh, okay. Mr. Guzzi, could you come forward? Maybe you could talk a little bit about the resolution for the contract for the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project?
Yeah. This is a project that was started actually a couple years ago to address some concerns in certain areas of the township where there were some issues with the sanitary sewers, along those problems. A lot of the sewer lines are older. What happens after a certain period of time, roots start to infiltrate into the pipes, joints start to separate. So this project is sort of comprehensive in its scope, and that it includes cleaning and jetting of the lines and removal or cutting out of those roots from the inside. Also in several sections where slip line, basically the inside of the pipe. So instead of digging up and replacing sewer pipes, we're able to put a liner on the inside, working from manhole to manhole, which basically rehabilitates the pipe and creates a, not a new, but a light new interior. Similarly, manholes, after a while, the interior starts to deteriorate, so we're lining those manholes. Also, one of the pump station wet wells is being rehabilitated in a similar fashion. So it's a variety of projects, some on Route 70, some in Hoodow, and then others sort of spread out throughout the township where there's been historic problem areas in the sewer pump system.
Any questions?
I did have a question. We received 2 bids, but as you mentioned, it's hard to find qualified.
It's a fairly specialized process. We wouldn't expect to get a lot of bids like you would if you did a road program or a park project. So it's not unusual to only have a couple bids. We did have quite a few plan holders, but again, for the most part, you don't expect to get a lot of bids for a project like this. Additionally, the project was within the budget that was set to myself and Ryan Phillips.
Right, so it was within the budget,
Yeah.
budget that you said.
Funds are already available, it's not adding, borrowing, or anything, funds are there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right, let's go through these then. Consent agenda resolutions, resolution 21-2013, authorizing fee for mailing of tax sale notices. Resolution 22-2013, authorizing award of contract for sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. Resolution 23-2013, resolution opposing A-1196. Do you want to comment on that?
Sure. This is an opposition resolution. The municipal excess liability, which in part provides pretty much extensive liability coverage for most, if not all, the municipalities in New Jersey. Their actuary has estimated this new legislation could double municipal workers' compensation costs of $400 million per year. So the MEL has asked towns to oppose this and have asked to sit down with the bill sponsors to try to find other ways to work with them to address workers' comp issues. Some of this stems from, I think, coming out of 9/11, where you have volunteers who went in and now years later may have cancer or things like that. They just don't know. This kind of gives a broad brush and is more difficult to prove whether they're actually on duty when it happens or not. So we're asking right now until the bill sponsor sits and addresses it for council to oppose it.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 24-2013, referral of ordinance 2013-1, sign ordinance amendment to the planning board for review pursuant to NJSA 40:55D-26. Resolution 25-2013, setting fees for municipal court discovery in Medford Township Municipal Court pursuant to recent amendment to New Jersey Book Rule 7:7-7I. That's the ordinance that we just did a first reading on. Resolution 26-2013, appointing by consent a pool of conflict township engineers. Resolution 27-2013, by the Township Council of the Township of Medford, authorizing referral to the Planning Board of a draft resolution of need for rehabilitation of proposed HBC zone and Tidswell Avenue rehabilitation areas pursuant to NJSA 40A:12A-14. Resolution 28-2013, accepting Freedom Park Skate Park construction and authorizing final payment. Resolution 29-2013, appointing by consenting township engineer. Resolution 30-2013, authorizing refund of 2013 sewer overpayment for block 403.02, lot 8, account number 96026. Resolution 31-2013, appropriation reserve transfers. Resolution 32-2013, authorizing refund of 2013 tax overpayment. Resolution 33-2013, appointing risk management consultant for the Burlington County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund for the period January and February 2013. Resolution 34-2013, resolution approving the terms of a new collective negotiations agreement between the Township of Medford and UAW Local Number 1612. And Resolution 35-2013, resolution approving the terms of new collective negotiations agreement between the Township of Medford and the UAW Local Number 1612 Water and Sewer Employees. Do I have a motion for approval of consent agenda resolutions?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is executive session and resolution ES 0205-2013. Matters relating to employment relationship, municipal judge vacancy, matters relating to the employment relationship, professional appointments and board appointments, matters relating to litigation negotiations and the attorney-client privilege, Medford Commons versus NDEA et al., Lexon Insurance litigation, and matters relating to litigation negotiations and attorney-client privilege, open public meetings, open public records. Do I have a motion for ES?
Mr. Mayor,
We have to add Mr. Woodstock.
I wanted to add the
Okay.
library contract negotiation.
Okay, all right, and adding,
Matters relating to litigation, negotiations, attorney-client privilege, library branch.
library branch negotiations, yes. All right, action may be taken on any of those items. Do I have a motion for ES 0205-2013?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Thank you, Mr. Bonney. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
45 minutes, we'll come back out and tell you if we're longer.